Thank you. Thank you. It's a great evening. Great to be here, as always. Oklahoma sports legends. I'm really somewhat embarrassed, though, when I picked up the program tonight, and not as much as Pat ought to be embarrassed to have his 9th grade high school, junior high picture on the cover of this thing. Pat, you had been in the 9th grade to have this picture made. Oh, okay, 12th grade, all right. You know, it's a great honor for me to have the opportunity to introduce one of the most colorful individuals in Oklahoma sports history tonight. And for me to be here to do this, I felt like I needed some help to do this. I brought with me a young man that's father was my roommate in college at the University of Arkansas, Mr. Bill Gilbo from Blytheville, Arkansas. He is deceased, but his son is here with me this evening. I've known him since, obviously, he was born. And the reason he is here is he's an expert. He is a linguistic expert. And I want you to understand, after you hear him, why you needed to hear him before I introduce our next inductee into the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame. Jason Gilbo, my expert linguistic.
Thank you, Coach. It is August 6, 2012 AD. AD is an abbreviation for Anno Domini, a Latin compound phrase meaning in the year of our Lord. It is approximately 8:44 in the PM. PM is Latin for post meridium, meaning afternoon. This morning at approximately 7:45 in the AM, ante meridium, I received a call from Coach Barry Switzer.
Hey, Gilbo, what you doing there, big boy? Hey, what are you doing tonight?
Well, Coach, I'm busy tonight. It's my anniversary. 2 of my kids have birthdays, and one of my children is graduating from...
Great, good to hear. Speeding quick. Hey, I need you to show up tonight, big boy. You know, hey, wait, Becky, Becky, I'm back hurts. Get me a cup of coffee, jelly donut, Quaalude, all right? Now, all right, great. Now, all right, bring over here. Sit right there. Hey, Gilbo, big boy, black athlete, speak. Get up there and Pat Jones there. Say a few things there. All right, see, 7 o'clock, Leon Smith there, Hal Smith sitting down there at the table. And all right, big boy. All right, see you later. Speak quick. All right, bye.
With that in mind, I'm here to help you understand Mr. Pat Jones. He is not someone you meet. He is someone that you experience. I came out with a thesis and term paper in 1996. It is my research that brought you this report. The average female has 11 different personalities. That's the good news. The bad news is also that the average female has a split personality. So, gentlemen, on any given day, you're dealing with 22 unique different personalities. You never know what you're going to face when you address a woman in the morning. She could be ludicrous, fictitious, facetious, biased, bigoted, dogmatic, heinous, joyous, foul. You never, ever know what you're going to deal with. That's the good news. My thesis stated that while the average female has 22 different unique personalities, the average man has no personality. Somewhere between a brick and a shingle, a man's personality and skills are as such. Unless you're Pat Jones. The average man can handle 44,000 words a day coming out of his mouth. Unless you are Pat Jones, 695,000 words between 10 and 11 on the sports radio. I am here to help you understand a little bit about Coach Pat Jones, and I would like to interview Coach Pat, except I will step into your role with your permission. May I interview, and I ask the term may denotes permission as opposed to the word can that denotes ability. May I interview you in first person and act as you as your answer to me? Thank you, sir, and I do accept. Proper. Coach Pat Jones, could you tell us a little bit about Leslie O'Neal?
Here again, Pat, he's a high-character kid, had a high motor, not afraid to mash at you, gnaw at you a little bit, come in there, bite you. He wasn't afraid to use his arm, come at you like a rope, swinging at you there, chain link fence. Here again, Leslie O'Neal was not afraid to gnaw and mash at you there a little bit, you know, quite honestly.
Coach, what about Barry Sanders? Same type of kid, same type of deal here and there, but honestly, not opposed to put a hat on, go to work, quite honestly. You know, Barry Sanders, you try to tackle him kind of like at the county fair, get a hold of Grease Pig. Getting a hold of Sanders is one thing. Here again, getting him down, quite honestly, another situation. Every time I look out there, Barry Sanders kind of looked like a booth at the freak show. Did not know what was going to happen, quite honestly, in these type of things and such. You know, here again, by and large, here. Now, Coach, what about that recruit from Texas that got away? Here again, he was squirrely and whatnot, and here again, now his daddy was squirrely and had done time down there at the federal pen, but here again, he was squirrely and whatnot, and things of this nature, and I would think. Did you know that Coach Pat Jones has invented academic institutions unknown to man? Coach, what about the kid that you missed out on way back in the day? Here again, he was a different breed. He came from Fill My Pockets University, you know, and whatnot. And his daddy came from a hands wide open state. You know what I'm talking about there. You do understand that kind of thing here. He had an uncle that kind of had come from some type of all you can hand out degree Polytech here and whatnot there. Now, Coach Jones, what about the one that got away? Here again, that was before Sanders and that bunch, whatnot, here and there. Here again, he came from the school under the 21st Bridge down there in Brooklyn, whatnot, where Dan Marino and them played stickball and here and have you. He had an uncle, whatnot, had his hands out, reminded me of an octopus. You know, he had about 8 arms coming out there. Here again, quite honestly, looking for Abe Lincoln type money. 8 arms here and there. Very good. Coach, was there a player that you regret not signing? Quite honestly, yeah. I tell you about this. Big kid, thick, kind of thick in the backside here. His daddy was big. Now, his mama was big. She, quite frankly, here, his mama had more chins than a Chinese phone book, you know, whatnot. Here, he swelled up. He came to us in a package deal with the JUCO kid, and that kid was a good guy, and they come over, and the JUCO kid come around here and it did not work out. But anyway, he wised up, made a fine NFL ball player and whatnot. The JUCO kid ended up in prison, and the big kid that had the big mama, he ended up in jail. He ate some kid's Doberman Pinscher one day and whatnot. And you know, in these kind of things, you cannot eat a dog, and here again, and not the JUCO kid went to see him. Coach, what about that one player from Texas that was an academic All-American? Here again, quite honestly, high character kid, same as Sanders and that bunch. Now he was a good kid. He was not even thinking about the cookie jar, let alone put his hand in it. Now his daddy was some kind of a straight arrow. I went out and see him on recruiting shit. His daddy was here. His daddy was a Pentecostal preacher, and he was into snake handling and walking on coals and drinking poison and whatnot and all that. Now I sat down there and said, I ain't never seen nothing like this. Now. But the kid signed with her. He'd hit you now. He'd knock you into some continent that had not yet been discovered, you know. And here again, quite honestly, and you know what like that. I used to tell Mr. Davis about him all the time when I was out in Oakland. You know, I'd sit down there, Mr. Davis, say, tell me about that kid again. His daddy's walked on coals and they drank poison handle snake. And Mr. Davis about there and there and there. Mr. Davis liked to hire, go draft some kid, a track star. I tell Mr. Davis, no, let's draft a kid that's got some hands on him. Mr. Davis liked to draft a Willie Galt type kid that that'd go over the middle. He'd get alligator arms. He had a short arm of the law. He could not stick those arms out there and whatnot. Coach, last question. Mike Gundy, how'd you get Coach Gundy? Salisbury steak. I kid you not. The kid was hungry. Ray, his daddy will tell you the same. Mike Gundy, some kids, how you get a kid, it might be weird. Hey, somebody might have a girlfriend there. He asked us what we was feeding him every night. I told him Salisbury steak, mashed potatoes, gravy, and see you tomorrow corn. And he said, sign me up. Salisbury steak won Mike Gundy over there. Coach, what do you attribute Mike Gundy's success to? Hand-eye quickness. Here again, Mike Gundy type of kid that you take him out here to Lake Holder Closer over here in Oklahoma City. You get out there to Lake Holder Closer. Mike Gundy would win the rock skipping competition. He is that competitive. He'd skip a rock here and win, and here whatnot have again a good hand-eye coordination. Skip a rock, here quite honestly, other things consideration. Coach Switzer, I want to tell you, Coach, the doctors gave me 3 days to live. I don't know if I'm going to make it.
Hey, great to hear. All right, tell everybody, hey, good to hear, Pat. All right, great. All right.
Jason Gilbo. Oh, it's great, Jason. Some of you might be wondering why I am introducing Pat. First of all, because he asked me. But secondly, is because I've known Pat longer. Merv Johnson and I have known Pat longer than anyone in this room. We go that far back. We're old Arkansas boys. He grew up in Arkansas, graduated from Hall High School in 1965, went off to play for the Wonder Boys at Arkansas Tech at Russellville. Then he grew about 3 inches and decided going up to Arkansas and see if he could make it up there. So he transferred to the University of Arkansas in 1966. I left to come to Oklahoma in 1966, but Merv Johnson was there. So Merv got to know him then. And of course, he graduated in 1969 from Arkansas, went back to Hall High School in Little Rock where he was from. They won 2 state championships when he was an assistant coach for 5 years for C.W. Keppel and a great program at Hall High School. He was a city boy. I was a country boy. That's the only difference in the two of us, and about 6 inches in height. But Pat then went back to Arkansas in 1974. Frank Boyle saw something in him, said, come back and be a graduate assistant. He goes back to Arkansas, and that's when he meets Jimmy Johnson in 1974. And Jimmy had just left our staff here at Oklahoma in 1973 to go to Arkansas to be with Frank back to school he had played for. They started their association then. Pat was there 2 years. Ron Meyer hired him at SMU in 1976, 2 years at SMU. Then he gets a call from Jackie Sherrill at Pittsburgh. He goes to Pittsburgh, and Jimmy's there at Pittsburgh with him. So Jimmy and he together a couple of years in Pittsburgh in 1978. Then all of a sudden, Jimmy calls me one day and says, I'm taking the Oklahoma State job. I said, you are? I was surprised. I did not know it. And he said, what do you think about it? And I said, Jimmy, assistant coaching job is not as good as a head coaching job. It's always better to be a head coach than an assistant coach. So Jimmy came, brought Pat with him, 5 years as assistant defensive coordinator, assistant head coach. And then in 1984, Jimmy hooked it to the beach. Jimmy's always liked the good weather in the Keys, and he went to Florida, and Pat became the head coach. 11 years and some of the great teams that Oklahoma State's had. And 11 years, he became the winningest coach in Oklahoma history. As Pat would like to say, not for very long. And I could say the same thing. Pat, the winningest coach at Oklahoma, but not for very long. But we did it when we did it. Pat won first 10-win season and then had 3 of them in 5 years. Had probably 2 of the best football teams that I played against, 1984 and 1988 Pokes. I think if the 1988 team, which was one of the greatest offensive football teams in college football that we had played, had the 84 defensive football team, they would have been national champions. I know that Pat is an outstanding football coach because after his tenure at Oklahoma State, he did something that proves you're an outstanding football coach. When you go into professional football as a position coach and coach for 10 years, you're dealing with the best of the best. You have got to command their respect, their admiration, knowing that they know your talents and abilities are what you are, and they believe in what you are and what you can deliver to them. That's so important, and he was able to do that for 10 years with 3 professional football teams. He coached 37 years, high school, college, football. Today, he's one of the most colorful, artful entertainers, media entertainers there is out there, Sports Animal, Fox, Southwest. Enjoy always listening to Pat, not because of what the hell he says, it's because he knows what the hell he's talking about. That's why I like him. He's a football coach, a football guy. I love him as you love him, and he's special to me and special to Oklahoma fans. And I want to welcome Pat. You sit there and watch your tape as they get it up right now to show you and all our fans here, Pat Jones inducted into the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame.
The all-time winningest football coach in Oklahoma State University history, Pat Jones spent 37 years as a football coach, including 10 years in the NFL and 11 years as a head coach at Oklahoma State. While serving as head coach for the Cowboys from 1984 to 1994, Jones coached 9 All-Americans. Jones's coaching career began in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1969 before he moved to the collegiate coaching level. He made stops as an assistant coach at Arkansas, Southern Methodist University, and Pittsburgh before landing in Stillwater as a defensive assistant at Oklahoma State. Jones was named head coach of the Cowboys in 1984 after serving for 5 years as an assistant under Jimmy Johnson. During his first year at the helm, Jones's team achieved the highest ranking in school history, second in UPI rankings and third in AP rankings. From 1984 to 88, Jones led the Cowboys to the most successful period in school history. The team went 44-15 over the 5-year stretch, including the school's first 3 10-win seasons. During his 11-year stint at OSU, Coach Jones compiled a 62, 60, and 3 record that includes 3 bowl wins. He was twice named Big 8 Coach of the Year. Following his time at Oklahoma State, Jones went on to serve as an assistant coach in the NFL with both the Miami Dolphins and the Oakland Raiders. He was recently named into the Gator Bowl Hall of Fame and Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame. He currently resides in Tulsa, where he can be heard weekdays on sports radio in both Tulsa and Oklahoma City. He also serves as a college football analyst for Fox Sports Southwest each fall. We are proud to welcome Pat Jones into the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame.
A guy actually on a radio show today, a guy called in and said, he was serious. He said, why don't you two make a power lift commercial when you get up there at the thing to diet? And I actually, Barry, that's probably not a real bad idea. I think the theme here is, if you can't beat them, join them. I would like to congratulate the other inductees. Going into functions like this and settings like this, it's always very, very flattering. One of the most flattering parts about this is the group that you go in with, and I want to, again, congratulate all the other inductees and for what they've accomplished, and it's very, again, flattering on my part to go into this hall with the other people. I do have one message for one of our inductees. For Dewey, I was told by Jimmy Johnson, please don't forget who was your first position coach at OU, which was Jimmy, and he did throw that in with mention Lucius too on that deal. But seriously, Dewey, Coach Johnson did call because he has thought the world of you and your family and wanted you to know how proud he is of you and me. And that and that does mean a lot. I would like to introduce some people that are very, very important to me in a lot of different ways. And my wife, Becky, that's down here, and she's been my best friend for a heck of a long time. We've got quite a bit of family around. There is a 2.5-year-old grandson named Gray Matthew who is totally convinced at this point in life he's Spider-Man, and we didn't really think it would fit in, so he got farmed out tonight. We've got a good number of our friends from around the state here. They're sitting at various tables, and I'm going to try to go fast. If I forget somebody, please forgive me here. I know there's 2 guys here that at one time were the Surgeon Generals of Payne County. There's one guy here that was an Attorney General of Payne County. There's one guy here that's Secretary of Transportation for Payne County. There's one guy here who's always been the Dean of the School of Hotel and Restaurant Management. That's Stan. And there's about 5 other guys here with us tonight that are on work release. They're my friends. There are 2 very, very special ladies here that I do want to mention, and they are special to football in this state. Special to me, special to anybody that's coached or played at Oklahoma State any length of time that are back over here at the table that the football department was so gracious to get. Miss Joyce Robbins and Miss Sandra Swank. They had been they'd been there for they ran the thing for they ran it well before we got there, and they ran it afterwards, and they have retired, but I cannot begin to tell you how how unique and special they are. And I will add this, they are probably the only two ladies on the planet Earth that can actually sign Jimmy Johnson, Pat Jones, Barry Sanders, Thurman Thomas, and you can't tell. You can't tell. They're very, very gifted. Y'all are very, very special to us. There were Pat Quinn, who was one of our sports information directors, and was going to be here tonight. I don't know that he has showed up, actually. Quinn's about 100. But, again, Pat is a very dear friend to a lot of us, was around there forever. And Steve Buzzard, who actually came to work for Pat and replaced him. But, Steve, you can share this with Quinn. If there's a Hall of Fame for how many times Phil Cutchin ate your ass out, Pat Quinn is a charter member of that baby. Because that happened a whole bunch to Quinn. I remember this is one of the legendary guys in sports information history. There was one time, seriously, Quinn used to have, this is how it was in the day, Quinn would have the media and particular people out to his house after home games. This is when the electronic media basically was payphones and dial phones. Okay, there was this true. It had to be late in '84. In Pat Quinn's living room, Coach will appreciate this. We had the executive director of the Orange Bowl, the executive director of the Sugar Bowl, the executive director of the Gator Bowl, Carl James, who was commissioner of the Big Eight, and on the phone, one of them had Wade Walker and the other one had Bob Devaney. And, buddy, they were cutting some deals. That's how you did it in that day. But again, Pat has meant an awful lot to a whole lot of people over the years. Steve Buzzard, who, like I said, took Pat's place. And Steve, for a sports information guy, or girl, or lady, however you want to say it, probably the Super Bowl is having somebody in the Heisman Trophy race. Well, when Steve was a sports information director, this was in '88 when Sanders is doing his thing and he's ripping up down the field. And you talk to those guys, and it's a pretty tense deal when, your guy's in it, he's in the running, and if you don't make it, if he doesn't make it, you're probably going to get blamed and all this kind of stuff. And obviously we felt like Sanders was going to win it, but think about this now. Sanders, they announced the Heisman Trophy winner, okay? We're in Tokyo, Japan, playing Texas Tech. We're in Japan, we're in a hotel in Tokyo. And you had a player that didn't want to go do the ceremony, and you had a coach that's fixing to take a team to play in several hours that really didn't want to go to the deal. And Steve's got the responsibility of trying to get this whole group downtown Tokyo so when the award is announced, we could say about 3 words and get out of there. Well, it all worked. I mean, we did obviously make it work, and I was so proud of Steve for that. Then we get the game. We beat Texas Tech, close ball game, go get on a big JL plane, fly Anchorage, Dallas, get out of the plane in Dallas, get on a bus, Stillwater. As soon as we get off the bus, there's a stage set up out there on the grass practice field. We're all dead on the door now. We're tired. And all of a sudden it's, here you go. Let's get out there. Steve's in charge of this. Okay, we get that done. Go home, pack, get up in the morning, drive to Tulsa, get on a plane, fly to New York for the ceremony. So Steve had all these responsibilities, and somehow he made it all work, and doggone it, it was amazing. And Steve, to this day, I congratulate you on the job. This guy's already been introduced, but I'm going to introduce him again. The all-time leading passer in the history of the Big Eight, second in total offense in history of the Big Eight, the Big Eight Coach of the Year in 2010, the National Coach of 2011, the 2010, the National Coach of the Year in 2011, will, within about 2 months, become the all-time winningest coach in Oklahoma State history. Mike Gundy and his wife, Kristen, are back there. Let me tell you what this award means to me, among other things. This one, to me, is for the state of Oklahoma football. State of Oklahoma football has been very, very good to me and my family. And we've had the good fortune to we did the Gator Bowl right at the end of the year. We did the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame right in the first part of the year. And these types of events really have made me totally understand. I knew this, but it does make you think about these things. That it's really not about trophies, and it's not about TV performances. It's not about Coach of the Year awards or any of that thing. I'll tell you what, it's about relationships. It's about the people that you competed with, the people you competed against, the people you worked with. Probably the greatest pleasure personally that I had at Oklahoma State University was my relationship with Mr. Henry Iba. And the day that Coach Johnson took the job at the University of Miami, I'm over to Jimmy's house. The president of Miami calls, and bingo, it's big happiness, and they're hooping and hollering. I said, Coach, I got to excuse myself here on this deal just a second. Bang, I hoof it over to Mr. Iba's house, and who I had developed a relationship as an assistant coach, and occasionally had an iced tea with him, and we had a good relationship. But he said, I knock on the door, and I said, Coach Johnson's taking that job at Miami, and I'd sure appreciate your help here on this deal. And he said, come on in here, sit down over here. Yes, sir. And he said, let me tell you two things. He said, number one, don't try to get this thing through the media. You don't do that. Number two, let your friends do it for you. He got on the phone and he called a couple of his old cronies they're all gone now. They're gone. But he called them and said, get over here. Need to go to work. Well, it wasn't 2 minutes. Bang, bang, they're there. And true story. He goes and opens the closet and gets about 3 football game programs that are in there. Opens the pages up to the picture of the Regents, okay? And him and the 2 other ones sit down there and they get their pencils out. Mr. Iba says, okay, I'll take him, and her. You take him. You take him. They're putting X's through the pictures of the Regents. This is true. And they sat down there, and then he told me, he said, y'all understand? You go call, and we're going to get him this job. Next day I saw him going up to see Myron Roderick, who was the athletic director at the time. Mr. Iba had his suit on and dressed to the nines, the whole deal. He never even came by to see me. But what he did for me, you never forget those sorts of things. Well, after I became the head coach and before we were in actually the season, and I had seen a picture in one of the books about Mr. Iba that had a picture of him wearing a pullover that said Oklahoma Aggies, okay? Well, I told one of our knitwear people that make the stuff for us, I said, can you make me a copy of that? Make me one of those. The guy said, yeah, I'll try, Coach. So anyway, guy comes back several months later. Some of our players remember this. We're getting ready to play Tulsa. We're in a big ball game. We're going good, real good. And I took that. I had the thing, came out, looked nice and everything. I took it over to Mr. Iba's house, and I said, let me show you something here, Coach. And I pulled it out of the sack and held it up for him. It was exactly like the one he had in the picture, he was wearing in the picture. And this is someone, obviously, who had won 2 national titles and a bunch of gold medals. And he lit up like a Christmas tree. His face, for an older man, and the clock was ticking on him. We knew it. He knew it. But to see the expression on his face when I pulled that out, and I said, Mr. Iba, you think I ought to wear this thing this weekend? And he said, I can't remotely repeat the words, trust me on that one, not in mixed company. In other words, he said, yeah, you go wear it. But I guess what I'm getting at here is I think I got as much pleasure out of those sorts of things with him and in his latter years that he would come up and sit and watch practice and so enjoyed the players and so enjoyed the coaches and the things that are associated with that. And I really do think that we added some quality years to his life, which obviously makes me feel very good to this day. Now, let me get into this gentleman here a little bit, Coach Switzer. And if anybody's wondering, why that a former Oklahoma State coach would ask a former OU coach to be the presenter at this type of function, let me just say this. Again, like Coach alluded to, I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, in the shadows of Old War Memorial Stadium. And I watched his teams play when he was playing at Arkansas, and they got good. And I was able to, all I ever wanted to do was coach. That's all I'd ever even thought about doing from the time that, yay small. But I watched his teams and I followed his progression and guys like him up through Coach Broyles' staff, and from freshman coaches to graduate assistant types. They didn't call them that. There were no staff limits, but they moved up the ladder. I mean, I saw this happening to guys. I saw it happen to him. And Coach McKenzie comes over here and brings Coach and several other guys who we knew of. So following that, I mean, nobody's going to pattern your total life after him. You can't do that. But, what I'm getting at here is, they threw the mold away here, but seriously, it was obviously competitive as all get out, between Oklahoma State, all this kind of thing. We played a bunch of high stakes ball games and all that, but this is among other things, other than the respect I have for him and have for what he accomplished and how he accomplished it, the reason that we asked him to be the presenter tonight. And that, Coach, I very much appreciate that. Again, back to the relationships. I've got to pick the pace up here a little bit, I guess. But the Gilbo, the associations that we made, I made. The high school coaches of this state, I think of Ed Lacey, Jerry Potter, the McBrooms, Bill Scott from Bristow, Dick Evans, Ron Lancaster, gosh, I could Leo's Robinson. I could go on forever. And these were quality people. It wasn't that you had to try to recruit a guy. These were guys that were, I considered, friends. The media people, and these were not, it's a little bit hard to explain. I mean, these were not just guys that you tolerated. These were guys that were our friends. And I Coach and Bill Connors from the Tulsa World, there wasn't anybody out there. I don't think that either one of us trusted and talked to quite a lot about a lot of things. I mean, Bill Connors, Volney Meese, John Rohde, the Trammels, Dave Sittler, Dean Blevins, Hersom, Bob Berry Sr., Junior Tegans, Ed Murray, even John Brooks, bless his heart, bless his heart. But these guys were all very, very special to me. I had the opportunity probably to work for maybe the best college administrator or administrator at any level that I could imagine, in Dr. L.L. Boger, who was the president of Oklahoma State University, who had actually hired Jimmy and then moved me up. And the beauty of that deal was, and this is, boy, there's not many if any of them are left at this point in time, college presidents. He was a Michigan State guy. Coach will appreciate this. He came up around Biggie Munn and Duffy Daugherty, so he had seen it all come and go at one time at Michigan State. And his release was that he would come out and watch practice and sit out there and watch the kids. And for a college president to do that, it wasn't like we said, oh gosh, we can't cuss the presidents out here. I mean, one of these kind of things. And Norm, but he had part of his calf had been shot off in Italy or Sicily, so he had heard nothing that we could say. He enjoyed being out there, but this was the president of Oklahoma State that would come out there to watch practice and to be with the coaches and to hear these kinds of things. And I listened to the guys that are still in the business. There's not very many of them left around. Believe me, I don't think. I went against 4 Tulsa coaches. I mean, talking about relations, all good men, all very good men. John Cooper, Don Morton, George Henshaw, David Rader, all very, very good men. The relationships that I've made through the business that we were in throughout this state, to this day, I scratch my head and I think, how fortunate could I have been to do this? Jackie Mildren was my friend. Steve Owens is my friend. Jim Riley's my friend. Charlie Newton's my friend. Billy Sims is my friend. I mean, yeah, there were not school colors, weren't they? They were my friends. Yeah, you competed, but these guys were my friends and still are to this day, and that was very, very special. I remember coming down here I think it was in '87 or sometime there to accept the award for in the headliner of the year, one of those awards for the Jim Thorpe Association, and I remember, if memory serves me correct, I read off all the names of all the Oklahoma State coaches that had gone before me, because I think we were the first to ever get that award. And I think that at moments like this, I can't help but think, you know, that between Cliff Spiegel, Phil Cutchin, Floyd Gass, Dave Smith, Jim Stanley, Jimmy Johnson, and a lot of guys before them that have all got a little bit of a piece of this Hall of Fame because they did things. You know, Mike's got things to work with up there that we didn't have. We had things to work with that the guys I named off didn't have, and it's got to that point. We had so many great assistant coaches that were up there. I can't sit here. I mean, we came in with Jimmy, and it was Dave Wanstead and Butch Davis and Tony Wise and Paul Jett, and these guys that went on and have done great things. And the guys that we had, George Walstead's as good a recruiter as I've ever been around because he basically got it done with Sanders. Bill Shimmick, Larry Coker goes on to win a national title at the University of Miami. Houston Nutt went on to become the SEC Coach of the Year at 2 different schools. Kevin Steele was the head coach at Baylor. Brad Seeley, who's with the 49ers. A bunch of these guys went on into the Johnny Barr, Keith Armstrong, Todd Berry was the head coach at Army. I could stand here and read them off, but if I don't say something about them, it would be remiss because I went through 16 years of very, 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 very good, loyal assistant coaches. Now, you know, and I think about 16 years of players at Oklahoma State University that, and there's no way, earthly way that I could stand off here and name them, call them all off, and I'm not going to attempt to do that, but I would, Ed Murray, we had a, even talking fast, I couldn't get Gilbo up here to name off that many of them that fast, but we had the luncheon back several months ago down to the Hall of Fame, and it did. Ed Murray, I think, was emceeing it and asked something to the effect of, you know, how do you want to be remembered or something like that. And, you know, I got to thinking that, you know, we got to coach the all-time leading passer in the history of the Big Eight, the all-time leading receiver in the history of the Big Eight, the second leading rusher in the history of the Big Eight. Barry Sanders was the Heisman Trophy winner. ESPN here a couple of weeks ago, their people actually voted on the single best season by anybody that had ever played Division I football. Ever. Barry Sanders. And they think they had figured that approximately 500,000 people had played football at that level. And we had the good fortune of coaching a guy who had the best single season of any of them. Leslie O'Neal went on to become the all-time leading sacker in the history of the San Diego Chargers. Jason Gilder went on to become the all-time leading sacker in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, these kinds of things, you know, and even going back to my tenure at other schools, when you talk about lucky, I go to Pitt 1 year. Okay, I'm coaching the outside linebackers. We called them defensive ends at the time, but I had them that year. It was only Hugh Green who almost won the Heisman Trophy as an outside linebacker, and Ricky Jackson, who's got a bust in Canton. I got to coach him. I mean, there's people that go lifetimes and don't coach that caliber of kid. You know, the youngsters, the players that we had at the Dolphins, and Marino and Sayal, and then we had Charles Woodson and Warren Sapp and Ricky Williams and those guys. And heavens, you know, nobody's that lucky, but I was. And feel it's obviously among other reasons why I'm standing up here tonight. We had a group of our players that showed up tonight, and I didn't know it. I didn't even did not have any warning of it. I didn't know what would happen, and I can't tell you guys. I can't even begin to. There are not words. Even as much bullshit as I got, there's not words that can express.
Pat, can Gilbo bring me a drink?
Hey, I can't put into words what these guys mean to me. Rodney Harding, you know, showed up, one of our great players. Hartley Dykes, again, the all-time leading receiver. Gary Lewis, Rusty Hilger, Billy Alstead, Kelly Cook, Bobby Riley, who is the best football player ever to come out of Stroud. Mike Jones, you can tell Burgett I said that, and it ain't even close. But again, I appreciate you guys. It's hard, you know, time tends to erode certain things, and you know, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. I was over there the other day. Mike had invited me to come up there and talk to a group of people and all, and I was we're showing some tape, and all of a sudden, you know, these guys, and it's popping up here on the deal. What are you gonna bring, Coach? Some wine?
You want one too?
No. It's from the vineyards of the bootleggers, boy. He thinks he's a damn vintner now because he's always, But they had this crew, and while we were up there showing a film of highlights, and there was a fella, it was a pretty good sized group of guys up there, and there was a couple of fellas on the front row, and it was showing this crew over here, and they're just ripping around and blowing guys up and doing things right and left. And I heard the guy down at the front that was sitting there watching, he said, "Oh shit." And I said, pardon my French, and I said, I told him, I said, you know, it's hard to understand actually how good these guys were. I mean, and again, fellas, I can't say how much it means to me for you guys to show up. I think having said all of this, just about through. At Arkansas, at the one over there, they only gave you 2 minutes, so I'm making up for it now.
He wants a chair.
For the sake of sounding morbid about this, which I'm not going to try to, but at some point we'll all cross the river and rest in the shade. That's the way you do. All right? And again, when my time comes, after my wife and our family, what I'll see Mike throw into dikes. I'll see Rodney Harding scoring touchdowns, sacking people. I'll see O'Neal wringing somebody's neck. I'll see Bobby Riley making plays. You know, I'll see number 34 rip up and down the field. I'll see number 21 score 45 touchdowns and turn around and give the ball to the official. I'll see 44, just rip somebody. That's what I'll see. And again, the state of Oklahoma has been extremely good to me and my family. And to the state of Oklahoma, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you, Coach.
All right, Pat. Good picture.